So, what game did you create?
Well, Sloths is a game where you control a ninja hedgehog, and using this ninja hedgehog, as along with its wide variety of weapons, you're going to have to cleanse the earth of sloths from hell.
Um, so, are there items in this game?
Yeah, there's a wide variety of weapons and items in this game, which will be scattered all across the game, and then a lot of them can be unlocked using the in-game currency that we have, but then you start with a few. You start off with a few of them, such as the sword and the shuriken. The sword is your basic melee weapon, right? You can swing with it, and it will deal damage in a kind of the area in front of you. And then the shuriken is a projectile weapon which you can fire at enemies, and it will do a little bit less damage than the sword, but it still does a decent amount. And then there's also weapons like the scythes, which are kind of like two small dagger type things, and then they're a little weaker than swords, but then they're faster, and they also apply a bleeding effect. And so it's a little bit of a differentiation in gameplay. There's also the kunai, which is kind of another projectile weapon, and it's like basically an upgrade from the shuriken, but then it's in a limited quantity, though they're very easy to come by, so it shouldn't be too bad. And there's also the paper bomb, which is more of a rare item, but then it does a lot of damage and should be used very wisely.
Okay. So, could you introduce some of the characters or bosses in this game?
Of course, the main character is a ninja hedgehog who's been training his whole life to combat any threat to the earth. But there's also a wide variety of different enemy types. For instance, there's the basic demon sloth, which is basically a sloth, but he also has wings and two horns. He comes from hell. And a lot of the variations of the enemies are kind of based off the demon sloth, and you'll find the demon sloth all throughout the levels. There's also like a fiery version of the demon sloth, which has like kind of fiery augmentations to his body, and he's a little more powerful, a little more difficult to defeat than your regular demon sloth. And then there's also the giant sloth, which is your boss enemy, and then he will be a lot tougher. He has a lot more health, and his attacks do a lot more damage than any other enemy, but then they're really slow. You should be able to defeat him if you're really skilled and like kind of know how to move around. Yeah.
Alright. So, are there multiple levels or stages in this game?
Yeah, there's quite a few levels in this game. You start on stage 1, and then after you've defeated all the enemies in that stage, you get to progress to the next stage by moving to the right of the screen. After you've defeated all the enemies on that stage, you get to go on to the next stage, and so on, until you reach the boss stage. And once you've reached the boss stage, you'll be able to defeat the giant sloth. If you do defeat him, then the game will say you've won, and it'll show your stats and then your score.
So, what genre of game is it? Is it open world or?
Sloths is a kind of a beat-em-up game, as I was saying about how like you're moving from one stage to the next. You have to defeat all the enemies. If you haven't defeated all the enemies, you won't be able to progress onto the next stage. And then there's also, in between the stages, there's these little checkpoints where you can kind of save as well as heal up, recover, as well as like buy different items which you can use to defeat more enemies. And that kind of leads into the money system in the game. There'll be kind of like items scattered across the map, and then you can break those, and then they'll usually either drop like money or sometimes maybe even weapons or items that you can use. And then also enemies, once you defeat them, they'll usually grant you a good amount of money. And then like the more powerful enemies, they'll give you more money.
So, what is the plot of the game?
Well, Sloths is set in the year 8000 BD, where the humans and animals have been able to achieve peace across the world. But then suddenly, sloths from hell start appearing, and they take over the world. And now it's up to you, the player, the ninja hedgehog, to be able to defeat all these sloths and just save the world.
So, I guess that's it then. Thank you for letting me introduce you.
Thank you.